Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and I don't know what episode this is because it has been one hell of a dog morning. We just got back inside from playing frisbee with Tink because she was having one of her anxiety moments, and Millie is now fetching the bone and bringing it back upstairs, and
it's all good right now.
They're wonderful creatures, but I think it's a pandemic thing too, like being home with them all day long, every day. Like I know all their little things. Like you're often out doing tree work.
Yeah, I don't stay home all day.
And like, so I know that if Tink takes Millie's bone, then Millie's gonna bark because Tink. And it's like you just know what these things are. But like,
do you need a spa day?
Yes, that would be nice. But
Melissa needs a spa day.
Instead, we've had fence day.
We've been building some fence out there.
So we've been building a fence for the dogs, mostly.
Big fence.
Unless we put sheep in there and put the dogs outside.
It could store just about anything but yarn.
Anyway. So
I think it's the biggest fence we've ever built.
And so we put posts in. We've been doing it like weekend warrior style because we both have like day job, side hustle, second side hustle, third side hustle.
Whatever.
So anyway, we put the posts in like a month ago, and then we finally got to the point where we're now fencing it. But that means lifting these massive, like, please say they're heavy.
Oh, they are heavy.
I've been lifting them like, you know those guys who do the tire thing? I've been out there like, lift the fence, flip it over, lift the fence, trying to roll it down the hill.
Are you going to be able to knit?
Oh, I'm hurting. I woke up in the middle of the night hurting.
Fencing is a good workout.
And the hammer hand? Hammer hand is a little bit rough.
Hammer hand?
No, come on.
Get the hammer
hand.
Get the hammer hand.
We've been like putting all these staples into the fence, and it's just... We both were like, oh.
I hear a little bit of wah-wah going on.
It's been
I feel like the fence thing is going great.
It is. It looks really nice, and the dog is going to be able to run around and get the energy out, which will be amazing. So, anyway, that's our weekend. Hi. If you hear heavy breathing or bone chewing
so do you
or
have any
things in the background.
Do you have knitting updates, or is it all just construction related?
Yeah. No, I have.
You got some
for
stuff.
you guys today. I have a couple finished objects. I have a pair of mitts. I have a hat.
Shop going on.
I have a shop there. We have kits for all those things in the shop. I have new yarn. I have a sweater that's finished in the background there. That's for a new class.
Knitting class is going. It's up.
It's
the new
up
class
and
is
running.
up.
Yeah, the first lesson is
This is
up.
your third class on how to knit.
How to do some stuff with needles.
The needle arts class
needle
3.
arts, yes. So I have all that stuff, but since Spencer is here now, we thought we'd just go for it.
Have a little combo?
Yeah, because you had an idea the other day.
I was thinking about efficiency. Not because I'm a big efficiency
You are not.
proponent.
You are not an efficiency
I
proponent.
actually think it's usually better to do things inefficiently.
Yeah. Like, I'll talk about wasting time, and he's like, what is this time you speak of? What is this waste?
You can't waste it.
Which is just like, for someone who's like me, I'm just like, what are you talking about?
But if you're so efficiency minded, why is knitting the most inefficient, absolutely top of the food chain, inefficient thing?
We've talked about this. This is
One little
eating,
stitch at a time.
eating a like soup out of a bowl.
Swimming pool full of soup
You often
with a
talk
fork.
about this. But I think it's for me, it's like totally relaxing. Maybe because it's like
Being inefficient?
it's anti-productivity.
But I got some suggestions for you guys.
Okay, but I was
Okay,
gonna say, the funny thing is, like, part of the reason this came up is that our kid is at this industrial and labor relations school, and he's taking this class on the history of like labor and unions and all kinds of stuff, and he sent us a paper to read, and it was all about the like Taylorism. So of course Spencer went right out and bought The Principles of Scientific Management by Frederick Taylor.
I want to go right to the source. I'd heard about Taylorism, but
we
I've never read about
haven't. I read this a while ago, like a long, long time ago, or excerpts or whatever, a long time ago, and then I just don't remember it all that well. But it started. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, it started getting us thinking about this efficiency thing.
Yeah. Even though this guy's not our personal hero, this Taylor dude, it's kind of interesting to read about how manufacturing and all of that came into being.
Yeah,
and labor practices.
And it's one of
associated
those
with
things
it.
where like you read the thing and you're like, wait, this isn't like the distillation of it over time. Like if you're like Marx or like whatever, it's the real thing is actually pretty interesting, and it's about class and about training men as opposed to assuming that people have. Anyway, we're not going to get into it, but it made us think about efficiency. And
I was thinking that with the coming year, because you usually have like a annual thing you're doing.
Oh yeah, and we need a new one.
Like
you have an idea?
I got an idea.
Okay.
All right, so it's an efficiency-minded protocol.
Inefficiency?
It's an efficiency-minded protocol.
Okay.
Wherein, at the beginning of the year, you chart out all your knitting projects, 12 months.
Who are you?
Colors and yarns and stuff you're going to use. And then you don't just knit like one sweater. You don't knit one sweater and then finish it, because that's so inefficient. You knit the gray part of the sweater, and then you take the leftover of the gray yarn and you knit like that cowl you're gonna knit using the gray yarn, and then you put the stripe, like the green stripe on the sweater comes from the green hat. Then you knit the mittens and the hat, but you don't finish them. You know, you don't sew in the ends.
How is it efficient if you don't finish it?
Well, because you're sewing in all the ends at one time. You know, because it's like faster and more efficient. And not only that, you have to team up. You got to team up with people to do different parts of the job. So some people
assembly line knitting.
Yeah. Okay. Fordist.
So, I mean, people used to do this with piecework. Like there were a lot of women who would get shipments in the mail of like sweaters that had been, I don't know if they were I think the bodies were machine knit.
Machine knit.
And the sleeves up to here.
This is good.
And then the women would do the hard part, and maybe men too, would do the harder part of doing the colorwork yokes at the top, which had decreases and like. So
the machine does the main
tube, part, the tubes, and then you get all in the and you had to finish so many of them to be able to get paid. And so a lot of women, if you read these histories of knitting, a lot of these women were like, I would never knit like for pleasure, or it's not a fun. They don't associate it with anything good or fun because it's just about like production line.
So you're saying this next year is not going to be fun? I mean, come on, it sounds like fun.
It doesn't sound like that much fun.
Because you want to inefficiently knit one thing at a time?
Well, okay, so then you're getting into what's more efficient, like being a monogamous knitter or like casting on multiple projects and working on multiple projects all along.
Wait, so there's like free love knitters and monogamous knitters? Like knitters who kind of knit around?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm a monogamous knitter. Like
I'm really glad to hear that.
I only knit like one project at a time. I might have one in the background like that.
But then you move on to the next project.
But then I move on
that
to the
doesn't sound like monogamy to me. That sounds like serial monogamy.
Serial monogamy. Well, it's better than, I don't know.
I spend a week on one sweater, and then I move to the next one. If I get bored, I put it down. That's what you gotta call monogamy.
But there are plenty of people who cast on like multiple things at once and just keep them all going.
Is that more efficient? Sometimes not, because you can't get into it, right? It's like cables.
It depends on who you are. So like some people do that and they end up having like the sock bag, the travel bag, like so this thing they take with them in their car and the waiting lines and all these other things.
You don't want to travel around with a big like blanket or something.
And then you have a sweater that you do that you maybe when you're sitting around watching TV, or you have a blanket that you're working on when you're this or that. It's like different.
Now what about this stitch thing? Like one stitch at a time. Like you guys have anything for that? Like you got
anything for that? Here's a pill.
Like, like 2 needles at once or something, because it's not very efficient. Like you're making a whole thing one stitch.
Well, that's just knitting. But people do 2 at a time socks and 2 at a time sleeves.
2 at a time.
And that's more efficient, maybe.
Can you do monogamous 2 at a time?
No, we're getting into some. There was a tree video I saw where you were talking about something. Anyway.
I can do 2 trees at a time.
How do you do 2 trees at a time?
You just notch them both if they're entangled up top, and you drop them both together.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Those trees we cleaned up, I dropped those 2 at a time.
The 3 or 4
in the backyard.
that were all sitting there together? Yeah.
Those are 2 at a time. Okay, so how do you knit 2 socks at once?
Well, I'm not a big 2 at a time knitter. But people think the people that I've talked to say that it can be more efficient because, well, I don't know if it's more efficient, but it's like, it's better because then you don't have like the second sleeve syndrome or second mitten or second sock syndrome where you
what do you put it on a figure 8 loop?
People do it on 2 of this 2 double pointed, not double pointed. What do you call them?
Straight needles,
I can't think of it. Like with the cord. I'm like totally lost of language right now.
Fence posts.
They use
fence rolls.
So 2 circular needles. Thank you. So then you can work around one and you work around the other. Oh. But people do.
So you kind of hop off one to the other.
You just keep one half of the stitches on one circular needle and the other half on the other. And then there are other ways to do it too. I'm not that kind of knitter, so I'm not.
Okay, but wouldn't it be amazing to do 2 sweaters at once?
Oh my god.
Wouldn't that be so great? You should do that.
How big would your needles have to be?
You guys have big needles, don't you?
Not that big.
Doesn't it just...
It would have to be like a...
Can we DIY that? Oh, coming soon to the channel, I believe, is going to be at 2 at once.
You could put all your cords together with those cord connectors.
What if you did miniature sweaters? 2 kid sweaters at once. It's just a tube.
Is this like, I think you're throwing down a challenge. I'm not accepting your challenge, but there might be someone out there who would accept
Come on, people. Like, you gotta be more efficient.
Why?
Because Taylor said so? I don't know why. I'm not efficient myself. I will run around doing things that are just not efficient.
I know you will. Yeah. But I don't know. I kind of prefer to not be efficient. It bugs me. Like last night, I finished a panel for a sweater and it was wrong. So I know now that scene. I have to.
She was so frustrated.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. You're just so kind.
I was like, how'd that turn out?
You know, just the thing to say. It makes me feel. So I know I have to rip the whole thing out. Spencer was like, can't you just tuck it and stitch it? And I'm just like,
what do you think duct tape's for?
No, it actually just doesn't work that way because
drop down.
I did in fact drop down on that panel
really?
Already, and like I fixed one thing, but then this other thing, it's just too many stitches on the side, so I have to rip the whole thing out. And it's like that's the one time when I'm under like a time pressure to finish something and something goes wrong and I have to then reknit it. It's a little bit like that's where I'm like efficiency minded, product minded, but otherwise it's very much just like it's the actual process.
I have seen you take out an entire sweater before.
Yeah.
And just, like, well, next time I'll be...
That was a bummer though, because that was also a sample knit for someone, and it was.
There was also the one you knitted. There were 2 colors. It was like orange and brown.
Oh.
And you knitted the orange where the brown should have been, and the brown where
These are always.
And then she put it on, and she's like, "Check out my sweater," and I was like, that looks really good, but it's backwards.
These are always the moment. They're actually, like, there are earlier podcast episodes.
That was awesome.
I went back to one of them for something else, and I noticed that it was one of those episodes where I was like, so I came in the room, and I showed Spencer my new sweater, and Spencer was like, that's great, but that little... that's a little bit right here.
I tried to focus on the negative, but... Okay, so efficiency is not a huge, motivating, creative force in the knitting world.
I'm going to go with, I don't know. Because there are a lot of people who get into like ergonomics and stuff to make it like faster and better. There are knitting contests where people can knit faster. People like to knit different styles, like Portuguese knitting or the belt knitting or all kinds of different ways of knitting, continental, English, like because they think it's more efficient.
Yeah.
Like there is a lot of talk about like if I'm a thrower, and that's less efficient than being a picker.
And over years, boy, whoa.
It's a lot of stitches once you start adding that stuff up.
I really like that idea of raising the sheep.
Yeah.
Shearing them, carding the wool.
It's a different kind of efficiency because you're taking it from the sheep all the way through. It's
it's slow though, right?
Yeah, but if it is efficiency just about speed, it could also be about like waste of resources or use of resources, right?
I mean that dude in that book is like about manpower and stuff like that.
Yeah. I also, when I think about efficiency, I think about our friend Steve, who once asked me, so how many hours does it take you to do, or how many minutes does it take you to do a row in like a particular sweater or whatever? And it's always kind of stuck with me and bugged me just a little bit, like gotten in my craw, because it's like...
You could just count it.
You could count it. You could set a little stopwatch, and I'm sure some people do.
Do a round,
to be like, how long does it take me to do a round, multiply it,
Shoulders and stuff would be...
It might take a different amount, that's different or whatever, but you could get a sense of like how long it's going to actually take you. But I think most of us knitters would be like, oh gosh, like unless you're a production spinner or a knitter who's working on tests and sample knits all the time, I don't really want to know how long it's going to take me. Like I know generally a fingering weight sweater takes me about 3 weeks. DK worsted weight sweater, a couple weeks. I know that. But I don't know how long I knit every night, or like how many hours it is for a row.
Well, whatever you're doing, it sounds like you're being pretty efficient because that is getting some knitting done. Well, you're blowing that stuff out.
I've been a little bit slower lately. What's stuff going on?
Yeah, this isn't one of your big 12 sweater years.
No, it's not.
You've been teaching these knitting classes and stuff. And
I've been enjoying the knitting classes. They're fun.
That's cool. Yeah.
I'm getting more efficient about that too. I do like.
Oh boy.
I have a whole protocol with that.
Oh boy.
But I am trying to get more efficient with that because it does take a lot of time.
So, could someone like me take one of your knitting classes?
Yeah, you could take the how to read a sweater pattern.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
They're pretty sweater specific right now.
Sweater pattern thing.
I think I should branch out a little bit and do some other kinds of classes. But like
a shovel handle holder or something.
Right, yeah, totally.
Like a cover for your steering wheel or something.
Yeah. I think that would really bring in a lot of people, right? The cover.
But how to read a knitting pattern has baffled me.
Really? I think reading any pattern is baffled. You just don't like patterns.
Absolutely.
That's the other thing.
It's so specific.
Speaking of efficiency. So anyway.
Maybe I'll take that class. I'll try it out.
You usually...
I just need a passing grade. Can I take a pass-fail?
Yeah. It's totally
Alright, I'll do pass-fail on that one.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about it.
So we're gonna go fence in a little while? I'll just finish this up.
Yeah, when this is all done, when this is all done, and it's going up on the YouTubes, we're gonna go out there and finish our fence, and you're gonna see some footage of it, right?
I hope so.
Let's put up a little footage.
Okay, do you have some extra from all the camera working?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got some stuff.
We'll show you our fence.
I'll
it's
donate
so
it to your channel.
Okay.
It's a good looking dog fence.
Yeah. Farm fence.
Farm fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was nice.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go, polish my wheels and stuff.
Yeah. Go be efficient somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay. Oh, you got it.
I think that might have been it.
It's always nice to have Spencer come on the cast, so I hope you all enjoyed that little segment. So as promised, I have a bunch of finished objects and a shop update for you, and a class update, lots of good stuff. So the first finished object, this is a lot of the knitting that I've been doing in secret behind the scenes that I couldn't show y'all until everything was finished and launched. So everything that you're gonna see in this next segment here is stuff that's up in the shop too. There are kits up there if you're interested in making any of these from the farm yarns that we've been supporting and the farmers and their work that they're doing. Head over to the shop and check out the kits. So this pattern is by Isabel Stokes and it is the Aspen Beanie, and this is a little aspen motif going on in the hat. It is knit out of a beautiful worsted weight farm yarn from Iowa. This is the Ridgedale Farms. I've got a different color up here. This is the taupe or the beige. I can't remember which one. It's horse, so it's sheep specific. And each of these skeins is different yardage, different breeds. So they have Rambouillet and they have Columbia, and sometimes they do a cross between the two. But all you need is one skein to knit this hat, which is one of those one skein perfect fall projects, perfect gifting kind of project. I really enjoyed knitting this hat up. It's a perfect fit. It's very cute. It's the kind of hat that I love because it's not too slouchy and it's warm and it's got a folded brim, so it has that extra warmth around the ears. I think you can see it here pretty well on the camera. And I think the pattern calls for 4 repeats of this aspen motif, and for me I just went with 3, and you can see that it fits my head really nicely. I was knitting the large size and my gauge was a little bit off. I know, I didn't do a gauge swatch. bad. So I just went for it, and since my gauge was a little bit off, I ended up doing 3 repeats instead of the 4 that are called for in the pattern. I think Isabel actually put in an option for that if you want a less slouchy hat. It's knit from the bottom to the top, and you begin with this really cool twisted ribbing, and then you get into your aspen motif. And if you're a beginning knitter or you're not as familiar with cables, this is actually a very simple one to complete. It looks really cool and kind of complex and perfect for fall, but it's actually really simple to complete with just a little cable needle, and the instructions are pretty great in the pattern, and I think you could do it if you were a beginning knitter. There's a lovely crown set of decreases here, and it's one of those hats that, as you can see, it sits very nicely on your head. It doesn't have a lot of things poking up, and it's not like an awkward shape or anything like that. I quite like the symmetry of the whole thing. So yeah, this is the Aspen Beanie by Isabel Stokes. Thank you so much, Isabel, for designing with some of our farm yarns. And I do have a call for designers. It's a rolling call, so if you're interested in designing with any of these farm yarns that we've got up in the shop that where we're supporting these independent small batch growers and shepherds. If you're interested in designing with any of these yarns, please get in touch. There's a call over on the website, and I'm always happy to talk to designers, new designers, experienced designers, designers from the BIPOC community, any of you. I would love to hear from you if you're interested in farm yarns. So yeah, so that's Ridgedale Farms, Angela out there, and she does a good job out in Iowa, and some beautiful yarn. It's a worsted weight. Each of these has anywhere between 140 and 180 yards per skein, and they're all 4 ounces. And like I said, they're all different, those 2 different breeds. So we have Rambouillet and Columbia in here. So yeah, good stuff. I love that one. The other finished object I have are these beautiful Winter's Rose mitts, which you've seen up on Instagram because they're just so photogenic. They're so photographable, I think. Beautiful. I've knit mine up in the light blue and natural combination, and Isabel, who is also the designer of these, knit her version up in Dusty Rose and Natural. So you might see her pink version floating around the interwebs. They have a gorgeous, I like that she uses the contrast color as the cuff and the hem up here for the fingers and the thumb. I love the way she did her increases. I'm trying to see if I can get the camera to pick it up. I'll have to probably put some photographs in here. It produces this really cool effect on the side of the mitten there. Really simple to knit. If you're new to color work, again, just like if you're new to cables, these are both good intrepid beginner patterns. You know, if you're interested in getting into color work and you want a smaller project to start with, I think these are really particularly great. They're one size, so I think they're gauged for about a women's medium. So the sizing, I think, is about 3.5 inches across on the hand. If you're interested in that kind of information, it's all up on the website. We have kits for these over there as well. The yarn is from Seven Sisters Farm, and I've just dropped some of it. So the yarn for the mitts is from Seven Sisters Farm in Sydney, Illinois. And if you've been watching the podcast for a while, you know that Kathy Capel is the shepherd over at Seven Sisters Farm, and she's raised Leicester Longwools, Corriedales, Teeswaters. They're some of the sheep that have come to pasture with us in the summertime. So they have a really good place in my heart. And you guys know that I produce my shorn yarn from her fleece each year. She had a bunch of fleece left over from years past, and she pulled together, this is a mostly Corriedale and some Leicester Longwool and some Teeswater blended here. And it is a woolen spun yarn. These are just some of the colorways. These are the kit colorways for those mitts. So you have light blue, starting on this side, light blue, lavender, cherry. This is sea green, the Dusty Rose, and the Natural. So these are all the colors that are available for the kits, and you get a natural and your choice of the colorway. You also get a little project bag and a stitch marker and a code to download your pattern. So all that's over in the shop, and for me, it's one of these things where this is some of the yarn that I saw that basically made me want to start the shop in the first place, because I knew that Kathy was producing this, and then she and Beth, another good friend from the guild, got together and hand dyed all of this beautiful yarn. And the colors that they selected, these aren't even all of the colors, you can see all the colors up on the website. They're just, I hope you can get them on the camera. They're so saturatedly just beautiful because they're over dyed over this natural heather, and I think they just chose some of the loveliest colors I've really ever seen. Plus, when you put these colors on this woolen yarn, I think you just get this kind of soft saturation to the whole thing. Now, I will say this woolen spun is not your typical woolen spun. It is like some of the best woolen spun I've ever used, something like out of Barrett Wool Company's woolen spun. It's very strong, and it doesn't break on you when you're knitting. But it's also very lightweight, and there's a nice blending of the stitches and a kind of blooming so that everything comes out really evenly and beautifully. So yeah, it's it's like the yarn that launched the yarn shop, basically. And I've had my eye on it for a long time, and Kathy and Beth were kind enough to sell me a batch of it so that I could put it up in the shop and make some kits out of it. And I'm just really thankful for all the work that they've done raising the sheep and dyeing the yarn. And it was spun up at Blackberry Ridge Woolen Mill by Anne. And I did an interview with Anne over on the blog a while back. She's still trying to sell her mill, so if you're interested in a fiber mill, call Anne up. She has an amazing amount of knowledge and expertise and spinning ability, because the spin on this stuff is, it's like, you know, the spin on something from someone who's been working on spinning in a mill for decades. You know, it's a perfect spin, just the right twist, everything about it. So anyway, this is the Seven Sisters local farm yarn that you'll find up in the shop. These are all the kit colors for the mitts. There are also full skeins of yarn up there. The kits are 110 yards for each of these mini skeins, and they come in at about 1.4 ounces, something like that. The big skeins are 340 yards and just over 4 ounces, so they would be perfect too if you wanted to. There's a couple sweater quantities up there, and otherwise they're perfect for accessories and hats and mitts and all kinds of other things. So I hope you'll find something that you like over there. And a huge thank you to Isabel Stokes for designing these gorgeous accessories, perfect for the fall, perfect for the farm yarn. I think she did a really good job of thinking about the yarn she was using and thinking about what it wanted to be, and just producing patterns that are gorgeous, good for beginners, really take advantage of the different qualities of the farm yarns, and she's been a joy to work with. So if you ever have a chance to work with Isabel Stokes as a designer, I highly recommend her. Wonderful job. Thank you, Isabel. And I hope you all enjoy the kits and the new yarn up in the shop. And the last finished object I have for you today is the Georgetown modification, which you guys have been seeing for the last few episodes. I've attached my collar here so that you can see the whole thing. It's a vest, so no sleeves. This is the pattern, that beautiful cable motif that's running up the two front sides, and I joined it in the back across the neck in pattern so that it comes together really nicely right across the back neck. And it's a very comfortable, lightweight kind of like hiking vest. So I'll put some pictures of me wearing it here, but you can see it just kind of, it's open fronted, but it's not this overlapping thing. So it's just perfect to kind of throw on if you're going to go out for a little hike or a walk. Just keeps you a little bit warmer, but you can still, I always think about those jackets that have the zippered things in the armpits or whatever, so that you can get a little air if you need to. So I kind of like the vest fit because you get the sense that you can, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just enough. So I've been really enjoying this finished object, and I've told you guys a little bit about it as I've gone along. I told you about my modifications to the Georgetown shell a couple of episodes ago, maybe it was last episode. So if you're interested in the modifications that I made to that shell, you can head back over to that episode. I talked a little bit about this design. This is the 1x1 Diamond Fancy from Norah Gaughan's Knitted Cable Sourcebook that I modified to create this single band with some interesting kind of texture on either side of it. And yeah, the rest of the details I'm going to save for that class, because this is happening for lesson 2, how to create a design element for your sweater and smoothly integrate it into a base or a shell that's kind of otherwise pretty plain stockinette knitting. So if you're interested in learning any more details about this one, I do have that Inspired by Design class up on Teachable, and it's kind of pieced out. So right now, the introduction and lesson 1 are available, and every Friday a new lesson will come up and become available. So this Friday, lesson 2 will be ready to go, and then 3, 4, and 5. And after that point, the whole class will be available. So if you're interested in that class, I talk about adding creative design elements, I talk about mashing up different patterns, I talk about re-engineering garments. Those are all the fun projects that are on tap for that class. And I'd love to see you over in the classroom. So I'm trying to give podcast viewers a little bit of a discount on that class, especially because it's rolling out slowly until that first week of November. So if you'd like to check out the class and enroll now while I'm working on the content, I'd like to give you guys a 20% discount. So you can use the code KTS20 to get a 20% discount on the class over on Teachable. And I'll put all the links down in the show notes. Yeah. It's an exciting time. As Spencer said, I've been a little busy. I'm looking forward to taking just a little tiny break after all this, getting everything together. Yeah, but I hope y'all are well and happy and good, and I will see you in the next couple of weeks. So take good care. Bye-bye. No swearing. But then you're like really short. Oh good, car's coming down there. Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and I have no idea what episode number this is.
364. Well, there's one thing that always works, which is the flat spherical object thrown repeatedly out in the yard.